Alright, I'm awake, sort of. Awake enough to at least play this and then maybe chat a little bit about Too Many Games 2023. I didn't know that I would be able to go to Too Many Games until, I'd say, a little under 2 weeks before the event happened. Because I had my last surgery for my everything 10 days before the event. When I did finally know that I would be able to go for sure, I quickly made arrangements, hooked up with Casey and Kira, and I decided that I was going to just drive out there. Which is a bit of a task because driving from where I am to where Too Many Games is about 8 hours. Because it involves going the long way across Pennsylvania. I wasn't actually that worried about the drive despite how long it was, because it's not even close to the longest drive I've ever made. However, I did not go straight to Too Many Games. I actually made a bit of a detour to a place about an hour-ish away, because I wanted to meet up with someone. That someone being NaN. For those who aren't familiar, NaN is a player of Bloody Roar Extreme, and has finished second in Bloody Roar Extreme at Combo Breaker the last couple years. They won the Winter Brawl 3D tournament, and we were hoping to hook up when I went to Combo Breaker this year, but the whole being hospitalized thing happened. So I decided to make a detour and meet up with them real quick. And that was nice. Just finally being able to see them, chat in person. By the time I got out of there, it was like 1 in the morning. I was meeting up with Casey and Kira. Their flight got delayed a bit. So I wound up getting there at maybe 2 in the morning. We were in that weird headspace where we were tired, but not tired enough to go to sleep. So we were just going to do miscellaneous other shit until we got tired enough to just fall asleep. One of those things was setting up some game consoles. However, the hotel TV would not display properly for my PS2 when we put in a PS1 game. When we put in a PS2 game, there would be massive input lag on it. I'm talking like just over 1/4 of a second, which for most games means you can't play them effectively. We were going to do some Tony Hawk and some racing games, and yeah, that wouldn't have worked at all. So what we tried doing is we tried looking up ways to circumvent what the hotel did to the TV to like adjust the delay on it to make it like more playable. We were looking up all kinds of ways to like circumvent whatever the hotel did to the TV, but nothing was working. So that sucked. However, Casey and I both had our Switches, so we were able to do like a little bit of multiplayer. We could use the hotel internet, or I could hotspot my phone to create a connection. And we at least got that working. Friday, day of the convention comes, and I figured, since I had my car there this time, if they needed to go anywhere for anything, then I could just drive them wherever. It turned out that wasn't necessary, because the way that they handled guest travel for this event was they had like their own kind of shuttle service that the staff managed. So there would be drivers and like a small selection of vehicles that could help the guests get to and from the convention and the hotel, or just wherever else they wanted to go. Restaurants, bars, shops. Now, in order to be able to use this, you have to be a guest. I was not a guest. But because I was going to be working with Casey and Kira, I wound up getting a guest badge. Weird? Not the first guest badge I've ever had, but The one that I've gotten under the strangest circumstances for sure. But technically, I'm a guest, which meant I could use the shuttle service, and I could also go with them into the green room space. Green room / break room. Something I realized when I got there was, so I was wearing my fingerless gloves, as you might expect. It was actually kind of chilly there. The temperature was low, it was raining a lot of the time, and inside the convention space they have the AC cranked up, so that made it even cooler. So I had those on a lot, and that actually wound up covering one of the bruised needle punctures in my hand from the operation. There's another one in my left arm that wasn't covered up because I was wearing t-shirts the entire time, and it was starting to bruise really bad. So at one point, I just looked down at my arm and realized, oh shit, this is still exposed. I don't want people thinking I'm a heroin addict or something. But I had this really thin, very stretchy athletic wrap, and I had 2 colors of it, green and blue. So I would wrap my arm to cover it up. So we get to the event space. They actually allowed us to go through this staff-only door, which was much closer to where we had to set up, and was actually right next to where the break room space was. So once we're there, I get a decent idea of what the interior layout looks like. This is a place that actually had a wrestling ring set up, because not only were they doing like a cosplay wrestling kind of thing, they also had a wrestler there as a guest. If you guys know him, Colt Cabana. We see where the panels are set up. We also see, like, Too Many Games does not just apply to video games, because there were a number of setups for tabletop games. That's not my thing, but it's cool that it was there. Trading card games as well. That came into play later, because Pokemon trading card games, and Casey voices some Pokemon stuff. And then we see this big-ass row of all these autograph tables for all the guests. Some people had started lining up before the people who doing the autographs showed up, because, unlike the other conventions that I've been to before, this was more of like an expo of sorts. And the thing about expos is, they tell the people signing autographs, you can start at this time, and you can end at this time. And it's usually when the hall opens and when the hall closes. And you just sign whenever you're available. So there's no like hour-and-a-half block here, 2-hour block here on this day. No, you're just there. And if you're not there, you're not there. For every day that we were there, there was one thing that was consistent, and that was who the first person would be in that hall signing autographs, and who would be the last one to leave. And that person was Charles Martinet. He was extremely dedicated to trying to get as many fans like autographs and photos and shit as he could. Also, he was playing various Mario music from his booth the entire time. Casey had a booth, and then Kira was right next to them. And then, if I remember correctly, going down the road toward Charles Martinet, who was all the way at the end. And by the way, Charles Martinet always had a line. Like, I would look over, and the line would always be, like, as far back as it possibly could. Charles Martinet trying to get all those autographs in was like watching someone try to swim up a waterfall. He spent tons of time at that booth. At one point, he got lunch, and instead of like going to the break room to eat it or going back to his hotel, he just told them, bring it to my booth, and I'll sneak it in between signings for people. But yeah, so it was Casey's booth, and then, if I remember correctly, Quentin Flynn was next to us, and then Cam Clark, and then David Hayter, and then I think Martinet was at the end. And then the opposite end, it was like Kira, and then I think Roger Craig Smith. No, it was Kira, and then Mark Whitten, who we'll get back to, and then Roger Craig Smith, and then it just went on down the line. We get the tables set up, but then we realize something. So all these booths are right next to each other along the entire wall. They have like little walls that divide the line space up so that you can line up for each individual person. However, there were big ass pillars that like held up the roof of the structure, and those pillars wound up being parts of the line. If you're sitting at Casey's booth, you look forward, and where your line is supposed to be, there's also two big pillars with like electrical junction boxes stuck to them. So you could say there was always someone or something in line, just not always something that's going to ask for an autograph. Although that did become a problem at some points where people would just hang out in the lines for some actors or whoever was signing that weren't busy. So it was hard to actually tell sometimes if a person in the line like really wanted an autograph or if they were just like milling around. So that was a little bit frustrating at times. I was there to help process any transactions because like people could buy prints and like Casey would sign them, personalize them, and then I would like tender cash, take cards, deal with Apple Pay, shit like that. I was nervous about doing that shit the first time, but it's actually a relatively simple process. So the first day, it seemed like there was like an initial rush for autographs, which was not how the rest of the days went. And the thing is, when you're doing like an autograph table like that for an extended period of time over multiple days, it becomes difficult at times to tell like if you have an initial surge of people asking for stuff and then it dies down versus a steady trickle of people coming in over the course of the day, like how busy you actually are. So the first day was when we had like the initial surge of people. So over the course of doing this a couple of times, I've picked up on a few things, mainly in terms of the types of fan who will show up for these lines. The first one, and the most prominent one, I should say, just to make this clear up front, is just like genuinely happy fans who just want to be able to say hi and get something from an actor that they like. And I will emphasize again, that is the most common fan that shows up in these lines. The second type of fan who shows up for this are the fans that are just a little too eager. And that can manifest itself in a couple of ways. There were two people in particular at this convention who would show up to this line and all they would want to do is talk to whoever was signing autographs. I mean, that's genuine still. However, if there are people behind them who are waiting to get something signed or waiting to like get a selfie or an autograph or whatever, they have other plans. They may be on a time crunch. So you need to show some level of consideration for that. You can't just have a person who's standing up at the booth talking for 10 minutes at a time, sometimes 15 minutes at a time. Those are the people who will show up if they see no one is in your line and then just start talking. And then someone will come up behind them thinking, oh, this won't take long. And then they just keep talking and talking and talking. And they say, fuck it, and walk away. That happened a couple of times at this convention. Excuse me, Expo. The other version of Overeager fan is someone who is like generally enthusiastic about the media present, like anime, video games, TV shows, whatever. But they don't really know much about what the specific actors or whatever have done. Because there was this one guy who came up, and like a shitty comedian, he just walks up, looks at the banner that's posted behind Casey's table that has all the different characters they voice. Like a shitty comedian, he's going, okay, what do we got here? What do we got here? Oh, that's Score Bunny from Pokemon. I didn't really play any of the Pokemon that had Score Bunny in it, but I guess that's cool. What else we got here? What else we got here? Oh, that's a character from, what was that game called? It had the thing and the thing. Gunvolt? Yeah, Gunvolt. I haven't really played that either. What else we got? What else we got? And he just does this for every single fucking character on the banner. Another type of fan, and I use the term fan extremely generously, is the Funko Brigade. Casey and Kira and various other actors and actresses voice characters that have had Funko Pops made of them. And if you don't know my feelings on Funko Pops, I think that they are a complete waste of plastic and time. I do not see the appeal in these things at all, but there are some douchebags out there who will pay obscene amounts of money for them. So this type of quote-unquote fan is the person who will just take a Funko Pop up there. Now, I will specify, not everyone who has a Funko Pop they want to sign is part of the Funko Brigade. Because there were people who had Funko Pops they wanted signed, but you could tell from how they were talking about the TV shows and the video games that they were, like, genuine fans. The people I'm talking about are the ones who just show up at the table, just ask to get the Funko signed, say nothing else. Sometimes they will show up at the table, they'll have the, like, Funko out of the box, or they will just have the box itself, and they will have, like, a post-it note attached to it saying what exactly they want the person to write on it, and then sign it. There was one person who did that, who even specified the color of marker to use on, like, the little plastic window. These are the ones that don't say anything. They just say, hi, hello, put it on the table, pay for it, take it, and then leave. We will come back to the Funko Brigade a little bit later. But just did want to clarify, genuine fans can have Funko Pops and not be part of the Funko Brigade. The Funko Brigade is something entirely separate. Exactly, one roll, resellers. And that is actually part of the reason why some people who do autographs for Funko stuff have, like, jacked up the prices for how much it costs to sign or write quotes on Funko Pops. They bordered on banning those things at PAX West. Shit, I would have been in favor of that. I guess I could count this as, like, another sort of offshoot of genuine fan, which is Starstruck fan. These are usually people who are, like, traveling in a group, like, with at least one other person, and the other person will do the talking for them. This happened a couple of times. One of them, it involved, like, a couple little kids who were getting, like, these Pokemon trading cards signed. It was actually kind of adorable. I mean, my usual attitude is, fuck them kids, but this was kind of cute. And I guess the last kind of fan I'll mention is also kind of an offshoot of people who just want to talk, but it's a very specific kind of wanting to talk, which is person asking for voice acting advice. There is, like, a time and a place for that, and it's usually not when there's, like, 7 or 8 people behind you just waiting for getting something signed. There was one person who was like, what agencies can I look up in this area? Which, if you're not from that area, you're not really going to know. There was a person who was asking about the hardware that they were using. Now, some of them did also, like, get a selfie, get an autograph. So if you can just, like, keep that brief, it's not as irritating. There was a staffer who went around all of the tables for everybody signing autographs. And they were getting lunch. there was this deli and restaurant nearby that a bunch of us ordered stuff from. Eventually, we got the message saying, like, the lunch is here, it's waiting for you in the break room. So once the line dies down a bit, we put up like a be right back message on the table and then just make our way to the break room. I can't remember what Casey and Kira got. I saw that there was a calzone, so I just said, fuck it, I'll get like the chicken calzone, I think it was. And this calzone was shipped in just a regular pizza box. I opened it up, and I immediately know I cannot eat all of this. This thing, when I opened it up, if you looked up the Rebel Alliance logo for Star Wars, took out the middle part, and then had the logo gain like 50 pounds. That is what my calzone looked like. It was almost the size of my torso. Yes, I did in fact enter the calzone. There were 3 acts to it, and I could barely finish the first one. When everybody in the break room saw the calzone, all of them just looked at it like, what the fuck is that? I'm just, like, trying to get this calzone into an eatable position. While this is going on, like, Casey and Kira are having their lunch, and then, like, at our table also sits down, David Hayter. And I think he had, like, a hoagie or something. And, he actually wound up splitting that with Casey. We all start talking, and the conversation eventually turns to cars. Because, Kira became a fan of Back to the Future recently, and now wants to see about getting a DeLorean. Which, if you don't know, they're fucking death traps. Anyway, they're also very expensive. So, like, I'm kind of giving her shit for that. Casey's giving her a ton of shit for that. So as they're doing that, I kind of mention, like, I mean, I give you shit for that, but my dream car is also pretty expensive. And David goes, oh, really? What's your dream car? And I tell him, like, an Aston Martin DB7. David goes, oh, really? You know, I have a friend who has an Aston Martin, and he asked me to, like, drive it every now and then, just so that, like, it doesn't, like, have anything go wrong with it from just sitting still for too long. You know, flat spots on the tires, fluids going bad, shit like that. So yeah, and he mentions that his dream car involves, like, a Porsche with an engine swap of sorts. So yeah, I did not expect to, A, have a brief back and forth with David Hayter, or B, have a brief back and forth with David Hayter about cars of all things. Because I am not a car person. The day goes on. We finish lunch. We go back to the autograph table. I should mention that I have some shirts that I specifically, like, make a point to wear at cons. Just on the off chance that somebody, like, recognizes what they're from. Or can just appreciate what's on them. Like, the Kung Fury shirt, for example, at PAX West. At this point, like, the rush has kind of stopped, so it's just people, like, trickling in. It actually gets so dead that I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna break out my Switch and turn on Easy Come, Easy Golf. Ready. And I'm going to see if I can complete 9 holes by the time we leave tonight. I tried doing this a couple times over the course of the weekend. I almost managed to finish a 9-hole round on Friday before we had to leave the booth to go do a panel that Casey and Kira and another guy, Mark Witten, was on. Mark Witten's done stuff like Demon Slayer, Genshin Impact, some Fire Emblem stuff. He kind of wound up hanging out with Casey and Kira and myself for much of the weekend. He was also, like, a really nice guy. The thing about the panels for Too Many Games, or at least the ones that Casey and Kira and Mark were involved with, was that they were like really generic overarching panels. Like the first one they did was just video game voice acting, which they could have had like any of 7 or 8 different people doing that panel. But this one had Casey, Kira, and Mark on it. Like with many of those panels, they have a segment where people go up and ask questions. There were a bunch of people who came up and asked something along the lines of, how do I get into voice acting? Or I'm trying to get into voice acting, or what do I need to get into voice acting? And I told Casey afterwards, every time you do one of these panels now, I'm going to bring a bottle of water, and I'm going to sit in the center of the of your view toward the back. And when someone asks that question, I'm just going to get up and take a huge drink. And we'll see if I still have any water in the bottle at the end. It was getting kind of late, and we couldn't agree on dinner plans at first. Which sucked, because with how late it was, a lot of places were closing. There weren't like a lot of places that were open till 11 or midnight or after that were serving food. But eventually, we did manage to hitch a ride over to an Uno bar and grill and managed to eat something there. If I remember correctly, I had the buffalo chicken mac and cheese. We also had mozzarella sticks, which I can appreciate even like a decent mozzarella stick. As long as it's got some crispiness to the outside and a little gooiness to the cheese on the inside, we're good. We eat at Uno, we head back, we get to the hotel, and we just kind of look off to the side, because you go through these doors, there's like a casual seating area in front, and then off to the right, I mean, I wouldn't call it a bar area necessarily, but there's a bunch of tables and chairs and some booths along the wall. And just sitting near one of the corners, we see James Rolfe. Just having a good time with some of his friends. And the thing was, we had stopped at the hotel before going to Uno, and he was seated in the same place he was when we left before. I will say, the entire time I saw James at this convention, he was always smiling. There was actually another person who was in the lobby who we briefly got introduced to. Briefly because he was jet-lagged as hell. Caddicarus. He was also there. We went back up to the our room, and we mostly just packed it in for the next day, because we would have to be there earlier than we were the previous day. So, Saturday comes, we're all up much earlier than before, because for each day that the event was going on, Casey, Kira, and Mark all would go out to this local coffee shop called eBrew. And I would tag along, even though, like, I don't drink coffee, I don't drink tea, I don't really do, like, coffee shop pastry shit. But they were heading straight from, like, that coffee shop to the event, so I kind of had to be there with them. But I didn't mind the company of them. Like I said, they were all cool people. So, Saturday happens, and unlike Friday, where it was like an initial rush of people and then it kind of cooled off for the rest of the day, this one was more like a steady stream of people that would show up throughout the day. So, like, we got there was initially not much of a line, but, like, at regular intervals, someone would show up and ask for an autograph, ask for an art print, ask for a selfie. We hadn't really seen much else of the event space. So when there was like a lull in people asking for autographs or selfies, Casey and I just took like 15 minutes to go to like the dealer space. And I will say, Too Many Games lives up to its name. As we go through there, first of all, we could also see like an arcade space of sorts. A comparison immediately popped into my mind which is the last time I went to Connecticut in Hartford, Connecticut. Last time I was there were maybe 2 vendors who were selling video games. Whereas with Too Many Games, it felt like every other vendor was a video game vendor. And it's not like each of them was exactly the same. Some of them were selling various other, like, memorabilia, old magazines. But we figured we would just take a brief break to go through the game vendors. That was not going to happen. In like a half-hour break, I think we managed to get through 4 vendors. We didn't even manage to cover like 1 row. We were going through all these vendors. There was a publisher called Premium Edition Games there, who was selling physical copies of, like, they're modern games, but they're the kind that are heavily retro-inspired. And there was a game there that I actually streamed on one of my Gamefly streams called A Robot Named Fight. And I actually wound up liking that game enough that I bought a physical copy of it while I was there. So this is a landmark for It Came from Gamefly. I actually bought one of the games that I played for Gamefly, and I played it new. Bought it new. Excuse me. Fuck. And I mentioned to the people working the Premium Edition Games booth that I had rented the game before I decided to buy it. And they were like, wait, you rented the game? How? And then I had to remind them that Gamefly exists. Which I feel like is something I have to do with just about everybody. So we're going through like some of these booths, and one thing that I learned very quickly from Casey is the difference of prices in video games in the Midwest and on the East Coast versus in Southern California. Based on what they said, the prices were kind of ridiculous. Like 3, 4, sometimes 5 times higher at points. Because they're going through and they're seeing these games that they did eventually pick up that are like $10, $7, $15, $20. They did in fact buy too many games. Like, to the point that they had trouble packing them. I got A Robot Named Fight, I mentioned that. But there was something else I got. And I actually got this before Robot Named Fight, and I thought, I'm spending money I don't have on this. But I went for it anyway. But it was in good condition. It was something that I'd wanted for a bit. So I just said fuck it and I got it. I now own a copy of Tomba. They did have Tomba 2 there, but I mean, I don't have that much money. I was already spending money I didn't have, so couldn't go for that. Oh, the name's different in the UK? Hold on, I'm gonna look this up. Tombi? I'm seeing Tombi. That's a weird change to make. Why did they change it from Tomba to Tombi? Tomba means something in Italian. Oh yeah, that's a very different connotation from the game. Grave or tomb. Lunch the following day, they did go back to the same place, but I just split a pizza with Casey. Believe it or not, someone actually did see me, like, having lunch that wasn't a calzone and made a comment about it, which led to... I can't remember if it was Casey who did it, but someone going like, I make it a pizza, which led to, it's a me, Mangelo. Because James Rolfe was at the con and we saw him in the hotel, I just made like an offhanded diarrhea dump kind of joke. And all I'm gonna say is, my digestive system took that as an order. We will not go further than that. Saturday, there was a particular fan that stuck out to me who went through like the autograph line. It was this lady who was a bit of an artist. That wasn't the intriguing thing, though. She came to Too Many Games from Italy. Just ignoring, like, whatever the terms were or whatever the reasons were for that. Coming from Italy to that convention, holy shit. That is a new level of dedication. And then while she was at the table, she drew something for Casey. What I didn't realize is that at Too Many Games, there was a meetup going on for Newgrounds. The reason that's so funny is that... so fucking funny! Is that Casey and Kira both voiced stuff that was on Newgrounds, like very early on in their interest in voice acting. And both of them appeared in Brawl Taunts, which was kind of a popular one back in the day. This person winds up drawing for Casey, who also voiced Shinji in Evangelion, an image of Link from Brawl Taunts in the Shinji pose in the chair. And she just, like, tore out a piece of paper and then busted out the drawing in, like, under 5 minutes. You know, I'm over here taking an hour to draw a stick figure going, how the fuck do you do that? There was actually another person who was a Bugsnax fan. They were a bit of an artist too, so they tore out like a piece of notebook paper and did a sketch of Floofty Fizzlebean from it in like under 2 minutes. You could see the jealousy just pouring out of every pore in my body. There were a couple other fans who just straight up gave Casey things, like these tiny little Ava-inspired figurines. Someone made a bracelet for Casey that was inspired by Ava. Also, because of the Newgrounds meetup, that attracted like a certain kind of fan. And something else that people kept referencing as they came up to Casey's table was Homestuck. Because Casey wound up becoming the official voice of Carcat in that. There was a panel that Kira and Mark were on, but Casey wasn't on one, which gave them a little more freedom to do some extra stuff. That said, we did wind up meeting back up with Kira and Mark later on to go up to one particular place that Kira had looked up and had recommended to her. And it was a pizza place. I don't know why I said pizza. Pizza place. We were going to go the previous night, but it wound up being too late in the day. This time we were able to make it work, though. I'm actually going to try looking up the name of the place. 1 second. Because it's a weird name, and I want to make sure that I have this right. Spanky and Luch's Pizzeria Restaurant. That's what it's called. And if you think that's a weird name for a restaurant, there was a place across from the coffee shop called Nudies. Part of the reason Kira wanted to go to this place is that they do something a little bit odd with their pizza if you request it. So if you ever heard of like Chicago-style pizza, where the sauce is on top and the cheese is underneath, I guess you could call this a variant of that. It's still like a regular pizza with the sauce on the bottom and then the cheese and the toppings. But they also do like a swirl of sauce on the top of it. I just call it the Uzumaki Pizza. I mean, I had a regular pizza, but I also split one of the slices with Mark, and you know what? Actually, not too bad. We did that, we got back, we were all very tired. Oh, that was kind of a weird thing. I brought my video camera like I usually do for these kinds of events, but I didn't really use it at all. I just kind of used my phone for a couple of things, but that was pretty much it. Sunday, we woke up even earlier than Saturday because there was something Kira recommended we do. There's an area relatively close by called Valley Forge, and there's this big open park space and a bunch of stuff that they preserved or like rebuilt from the Revolutionary War days. We all wound up going over there. Me, Casey, Kira, Mark, all of us. On the way there, Casey is talking about this store that's also relatively close by to the Philly area, which is owned by the parents of Bam Margera. Casey just starts going through the Bam lore about like his purple Lamborghini and like all the various trials and tribulations he's been through. And as we are on our way to Valley Forge, coming the opposite way is a purple Lamborghini, immediately followed by a red Lamborghini. Those are not exactly common cars for this area, so Casey and I are both looking back at these Lambos that just passed us and going, was Bam in one of those? He had one that got wrecked. He had one that he sold off. But Bam has owned, like, multiple Lambos. So we can't confirm it, but we also can't deny it. So anyway, we get to Valley Forge, and just massive open plains, which, I mean, it's cool to look at and cool to walk through. But it was also in the mid-80s, and not a cloud in the sky. Like, the one day it wasn't raining, and it happened to be the day that we were going to be outside the most. We didn't get to do too much walking around there, but we did manage to see, like, we went up this big-ass hill and saw this entrenchment with, like, mounds around it and these pikes sticking out, and, like, places that were carved out for the cannons to fire down the hill. And then we walked back down to the visitor center, which was very nice because it was air conditioned and not in the sun. But there was also a moment in there where, like, all of us turned into 10-year-olds. Because there was this display explaining how to load, prep, and fire a musket. And I took a picture of step 11, which is cock firelock. Pull the cock all the way back until it clicks. No further comment. We didn't have too much time to do the walk, and we wound up making our way back to the convention space. A little bit behind schedule for what we were planning to do, but we're still able to get through all our autographs and shit. Mark got slammed at one point, and it happened to be, like, toward the tail end of the day. Although there was also a panel that Casey, Kira, and Mark all had to go on, which was a JRPG panel. It being a JRPG panel did not stop people from asking the, how do I get into voice acting? That shit again. Now, immediately after the panel, we all went back to the break room because Casey, I have never seen Casey, like, fanboy or fangirl or whatever over, like, any of the guests at a convention. But there is one person that they kind of do this with, or that I've seen them do this with, and that is James Rolfe. So after the panel, we all get together, we all head toward the break area, and there's James just sitting at the table, chatting with one of his bandmates. Because he has a band, Rex Viper, that performed the previous night. Yeah, he was all smiles. He was just happy to talk with them. And I'm off to the side not saying anything. Because at first I was like, oh yeah, well, look up with James Rolfe, that's cool. But you know how, like, the longer something dwells in your mind, the more you think about it and then overthink it? That's kind of what was going on with me. Because I was thinking back to, like, when I first started watching him, getting the inspiration to try and cover some other game. I don't think I ever mentioned this. The first video I was going to do was a breakdown of sorts on the instruction book to Castlevania II Simon's Quest, because there's a couple oddities in there as well. But that eventually led to me figuring out a way to do videos about games, and then also led to me hooking up with the RCG crew, and then also led to me meeting Taikeru Chimaru, who I'm currently engaged to. And it's like this weird butterfly effect thing. Just imagine, like, the Pepe Sylvia wall from It's Always Sunny, and just like all the different arrows and text connecting everything. That's what my mind is constructing, with the start point being watched AVGN video. And then going all the way up through all the shit I've done up to today. So that happens, and I just freeze. I don't say anything, I don't do anything. I do my usual introvert thing, which is I have the special ability to like drop out of a conversation and like people do not notice me at all. I've done this at like family reunions and shit, and I shouldn't say it, but I've become kind of good at it. But then Casey is there, like, not literally nudging me, but like just kind of saying off to the side, did you want to get your badge signed or get a photo with him? Because everyone was getting photos with him. In fact, the drummer for his band was there as well, and it turned out he was a fan of Casey's work, and they wound up getting a photo together. But eventually, Casey, like, does convince me to, like, get a photo with James Rolfe, and I threw it on Discord and Twitter with zero context. And that was, like, the damn bursting moment that I needed. Because I just blurred out to James, like, I've been watching you since, like, the Simon's Quest video, and it inspired me and my friends to start doing videos about video games ourselves. We've been doing it for, like, 13, 14 years. And it led to me, like, meeting my future wife and just all this shit. And the entire time, he just has a smile on his face, like, and saying how cool that was. And then I finish, I pause for a moment, and I go, do you ever get tired of hearing shit like that? And he's like, no, not at all. My face was probably bright red by the end of this, but what the fuck ever. And then, of course, when I post that photo, Hero, one of my friends, says, like, you two look like you haven't aged at all over the past 10 years. Or something to that effect. I hope that statement holds true another 10 years from now. It won't. That happens. And he goes off to do a signing of his own. And I thought Charles Martinet's lines were long. Fucking just the sea of people around James Rolfe's booth trying to get shit signed. Sunday, we go to our booth, like after gawking at like the amount of people waiting for James Rolfe. And like every time we leave the booth, we take like the drape at the end of the table and flip it up to cover up the art prints and shit that's being sold. We go to the table, and there are 3 guys standing right at the table, and they have these things laid out on top of it, and we can't tell what they are from a distance. We get closer, they're all Funko boxes. I'm trying to find the nicest way to express this possible. Like, the table's not set up, so there is actually a line of people behind them. They have to get, like, their Funko shit off the table. One of them actually was waiting for Casey to sign a couple of things. Casey's like, all right, and process the transaction. They sign things, write a couple quotes on the box. And then the one guy starts talking about, like, different events that they could possibly meet up at, possible deals to cut. And he's not being, like, overtly rude or anything about it. He's doing that polite, kind of aggressive pitch for what he's trying to, like, get Casey to agree to. The kind where you, like, just keep talking and don't give the other person a chance to break in. And the whole time he's going on, the other 2 guys are off to the side, like, getting the Funko boxes, like, making sure the autographs are dry, folding them back into place, putting them into these cases to carry around. And I'm just looking behind them at the people waiting for us to get set up. I'm thinking, I'm going to give them 5 minutes, And if they're not gone, I am dragging them away from the booth. But fortunately, like, as soon as I had that thought, he started wrapping up, and apparently he did this to Kira, and I think he did it to Mark as well. But he gave, like, this USB battery thing. It's the kind of thing that I bring to conventions all the time. To, like, charge a phone or charge, like, the square thing that you use to process transactions. But you could tell that he, like, knew he was going to do this way in advance, because with all of these that he brought, he charged them ahead of time. So he gives them that, like, wraps up his conversation, and then leaves. And then in my head, I'm just going, thank fuck. And then I help with setting up the table so that the actual fans can, like, meet Casey, get a print, whatever. So I tried doing the 9 holes of golf thing again. I do not make it through hole 2. So the 9 holes of golf test sort of became like a measuring stick to see, like, how busy the day was. So there was something else that happened in the break room. Sorry, rewinding time a little bit. After getting Rolfed, we did have some lunch in the break area. What we wound up doing was the hoagie that David Hayter got before was from a Wawa. So we all just decided to get something from there. And Casey and I both said, I'll have what he's having, which was a steak and cheese hoagie. And I didn't even realize this until I was like 5 bites into the thing. It's not quite the same thing, but the thing I ate that helped cause my esophagus to rupture and put me in the hospital was steak. The meat in this hoagie was steak. Granted, it was diced up a little more, but that kind of hit me like, oh shit. Am I healthy now? Because here's the thing, even though, like, I'm able to do almost everything that I could before now, I'm just waiting a little bit to do things like go to the gym. I was not planning to touch steak for a while, and the fact that it didn't even occur to me that I was eating it and having no problems with it until I was like 5 bites in, I think that is a major sign of progress. We wrap up, collect all the prints, get everything together, and we're heading out. Charles Martinet's line is still going, as usual, and we pass by where James Rolfe is doing his signing. That is still really crowded. Although we're at a distance, and we think we see James at the back of the line dressed up in his, like, AVGN getup. But as we get closer, we realize, no, wait, James is still at the table. So who is the... And it was this cosplayer. It was terrifying how much he looked just like James Rolfe. Like, not just with the costume, but his hair, his face, his teeth, like, everything. Spitting image of James Rolfe. Oh shit, it's one of the Elm Street clones? Oh god, I didn't even think about that. It's probably the one that shit on the game cartridge.
Bombs away! Oh, fuck you, diarrhea fiend!
I guess this is to be expected when AVGN is brought up, but there's an unusual amount of diarrhea in this stream. So we head back, we get to the hotel, we were already checked out, and we'd used my car to just stow some bags in the trunk. So we got those out, and they were all getting prepped to go back to the airport. I managed to get one last photo with the crew. Me, Casey, Kira, Mark. I hope I run into Mark again. He was really cool. Although, I fucked up the photo, because instead of having my camera just set to photo, it was set to single take. So as a result, I have like a couple incredibly short videos and photos that were in like black and white, photos that went off like after I'd already tried taking the photo once. It was just a mess. What the fuck? It's doing like a burst capture. No, stop. Right as we're starting to go to the, get stuff out of the car, get luggage organized, and get them to the airport, which they were using the shuttle service for again. So this is where we parted ways. It starts raining. Now, before I left for Too Many Games, I saw that rain was in the forecast, so I brought my umbrella. I proceeded to not use it at all until this one moment. But yeah, then we said our goodbyes, and I started driving back to Ohio. And that was Too Many Games.